live?
We're live.
Good. Feeling loose?
I'm good. I'm ready to go.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the Carolina Packers podcast. It's another great day in the Carolinas, and we have some great content lined up for you today. I'm kind of excited.
I am.
I know Evan is too. We have a whole bunch of segments that we're excited to try out. But first, before we get to that, we wanted to go through and do a quick shout out to our favorite comment from last week, or I guess 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago it has to be.
2 weeks ago on our last video. The comment reads, second comment, exclamation mark.
Well,
Thank
that's
you
good
for that.
stuff. Thank you
for
so
that.
much. You know, the community is really coming together, honestly, for these videos, and it's really shown in the comment section.
It is. If you have a comment that you would like to leave a comment right now, and we might read it in the next comment section on our next video. We also have a message from one of our fans in the mailbag.
Ooh, the mailbag.
Yep, that we would like to go through real quick. Just as part of this connect with the fans.
We're trying to do that, especially at the start of the channel. You know, we're growing, and I hope to still continue to do this when we really hit it off. When we hit it big.
So, first message reads, Dear Carolina Packers crew, your podcast helped me last week through my colonoscopy.
Ooh, good.
I will spare you the details how. From Banana Man 1776.
You know, I'm sorry you've gone through that. I haven't yet had to do that.
But we're glad to help.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Whatever
Banana.
gets you through it.
Thank you, Banana Man, for your kind words.
Yes, thank you.
Now, for the regular program.
Yeah.
First up, we have our hot tamales section to cool off your day. I have a hot tamale for you, Evan.
Okay.
And I want to know what you think.
All right.
Just in the midst of all of these discussions about Kevin Durant asking for a trade and the implosion of the Brooklyn Nets last year getting swept out of their playoff series by the Boston Celtics, and Kyrie Irving has just re-signed or did his player extension. I believe he picked up the or he has a 1-year deal. He signed a 1-year deal. He's supposed to be with the team. Immediately, Kevin Durant wants to be traded, but we hear wants to be traded with Kyrie Irving.
I mean, yeah.
Which, I mean, all of us want Kevin Durant. And I guess if he plays, people want Kyrie Irving. But my hot tamale for you is I think right now, Kyrie Irving is not a Hall of Famer.
Ooh. I mean, I could see that, but I feel like
What is on his resume?
Championship.
For one championship, but just being on a championship team.
But he also carried a lot of teams. He is arguably one of the best dribblers of our generation, one of the best finishers of our generation.
Is he though?
I'd say I know he's one of the best dribblers.
He's a good dribbler.
And he's a scorer. He's a scorer.
But when he wasn't the second guy to LeBron James, he has come up short in a big way.
I mean, that's the
every
thing.
season.
But the whole thing is you're talking a bunch of people have come up short because of how many dynasties there's been, right? So you have really there's a handful of like one-time winners within the past couple of years. Like you have the Bucks, you have the Toronto Raptors, but really it's been ultimately like the Warriors, the Heat, whatever that may be. You have these dynasties that have taken over and really taken away the championship rings from teams.
I think Kyrie Irving has shown himself to be a very good individual player sometimes.
Oh, 100%.
But I think you also have to take into the equation his capacity to destroy teams and destroy team cultures.
I get that.
He was venomous at the Boston Celtics. I mean, the way that he left that team was very poor, and they are amazingly better off without him.
They
he
are.
left, and that team improved.
Okay, the Boston Celtics are, yes, but think about who the Boston Celtics have now.
No, they had when he was there just 2 years ago.
They had a solid team.
They had a solid team.
And you would think they would have
did
done
great
better.
when he was injured.
This is true. But again, the only concern I have with that is, maybe not now, but in the general scheme of things, a lot more people are in the Hall of Fame, right? There's a lot of people that
make the Hall of Fame.
that make the Hall of Fame, like first ballot even. Like again, Paul Pierce is the name that comes to my head. He had a couple championships. He was great, but there's certain players. Maybe Paul Pierce is the right example or whatever, but I feel as if maybe not right now. Kyrie's a champion or a Hall of Famer, but maybe in years to come when there's a slower, not as many people that are first ballot Hall of Famers or
I just can't help but
recycled.
think, as far as the other point guards you have in the league, I mean, right now even, Chris Paul, I think is a guaranteed Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
I don't know if you count Devin. Is Devin Booker a shooting guard?
He's a shooting guard.
Yeah, okay. Who just played point guard essentially for the Suns for a while. But I would say Damian Lillard is better than Kyrie Irving. I think Damian Lillard has more clutch shots, more teams that he has built around. Well, one team, but more groups of players that have come in and out, but he's stayed the rock that they've built around.
I could see that. I mean, but again, it's one of those situations where, headache wise, of course.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have him in the Hall of Fame. But and maybe not even accolades wise, but like maybe I am just biased because he's a name that you recognize. Maybe that's what it is.
He had that really clutch shot in the playoff series. And I guess it comes down to what are the qualifications for the Hall of Fame?
That's the thing.
A clutch shot.
That's the thing.
A clutch shot and then some really good play as a second-hand man. I think it's kind of the question of does Paul George belong in the Hall of Fame?
Doesn't have any rings.
But if they win, with similar resumes, right?
Yes, very similar resumes.
Paul George has never been on a team of the same caliber either. They're kind of a similar player, except Paul George is a better defender.
Yeah, I see that. I mean, you're also talking about two different styles. Well, I shouldn't say completely different styles. I mean, I would say Kyrie's faster. Kyrie's more, more this. I guess the one-on-one player is by far ahead. ISO player, way better than Paul George. But you just also said it too. I mean, defensive-wise, Paul George is ahead of Kyrie Irving at least. But I could see it. I could see him making the Hall of Fame. But again,
this year we'll say a lot. Last year,
I think last year was a sign as well when he did make it with Kevin Durant. Like that team was just stacked.
Yes.
But
with James Harden.
Yeah.
For a while. Yep. And they just couldn't make it work.
Yeah.
So
that's what it is. I like that hot tamale. What? I think it's a solid hot tamale. Mine's not as spicy. Mine's more of the mellow, something that frustrates me.
Something really cool mood.
That really cools the mood. So same kind of vein with the NBA. I really think they need to change some of the rules. I think it's a big situation, especially moving screens. I think that is something that really upsets me. That half the time you see the player that's standing still for the screen moving all the time, and they call it. But I've seen, especially in the finals this past time, I saw Draymond Green, of all the players, moving about when he was setting screens, and that's illegal, and I thought in the book, but it's not really called. And that's the same thing with a bunch of other rules. But I think I would implement is, I mean, this is a different rule, is a 4-point shot.
Really?
I would implement a 4-point shot or change the shape of the court to make it either further out or have no like sideline 3-pointers. have everything out further and just push it out to where it's further back. Because I feel like, obviously, nowadays, the NBA's changed, and they changed the NBA to have the three-point shot in the first place. Now kids are also, because of Curry and stuff, and because of that three-point shot being 3 points instead of 2, they're practicing that a lot more. So it's becoming very easy for people. You see a lot of stretch fives shooting threes now, and where they used to only just be paint people and rebounders, whatever that may be. But you don't see post moves that much anymore. Very, very few players do post moves. But the three-pointer is so easy now. Maybe not a 4-point shot, but at least expand the three-point line. Because those side three-point shots are obviously are shorter.
It should be the same distance the whole way around.
100%.
I see the reason for that. Yep.
Yeah, I think that's something I feel is something that needs to change. Especially like you see Curry, you see Lillard, you see Trey, you see all these players that shoot it from
Kyrie
almost
Irving.
half court.
Mm-hmm.
LeBron even does it.
Mm-hmm.
Even LeBron, you see, at shooting from
He's
the
been
logo.
practicing,
Yeah. So why not extend it? Because I mean, you saw in the finals, Curry was just hitting it, just easy. It's a layup for him.
Yeah.
Which, granted, okay, you're pointing at that, and maybe teams need to build around that. And you see the Warriors do that, build around the three-point shooters, but expanding it and giving more room in the paint, especially because I think that's a big thing too. Is you have these like clogs in the paint because of how small it is. Just expand it out. Let them be more spacing, and I think I think that's a rule change that needs to happen.
I agree with you on expanding the sides of the court so that it is an even 3-point line
100%.
the whole way around. I'm sure at the beginning they thought, well, you're at a disadvantage without the backboard, but no one's banking it in from any distance anyways.
Yeah.
I think my hesitation with a 4-point shot would be there's already been concern about the trend of the NBA now going towards just 3-and-D play, and it can kind of make the game stagnate where a lot of it's just played between the half court and the 3-point line. And, you know, as much as there's that conversation that Nikola Jokic has been MVP 2 seasons in a row as a center.
This is true.
So, and Embiid was the other guy running up for it. So centers are coming back, but I do think a 4-point line would potentially draw the play even further out into just like a deep bomb.
And also, I will add though that when you're saying the back-to-back MVPs, obviously it is a big man, but those big men can pass and they can rebound. Obviously, so they pad their stats.
Right.
Other than Curry is shooting all these threes and shooting all these other shots, he's not really rebounding. He might be passing it, but you're as a center, especially nowadays center, Jokic is one of the best passers. As a big
in
man.
a way we've never seen before.
And so that's a generational talent, and maybe what's really more likely, maybe I would like the 3-point, but honestly, the NBA is trending to just length.
Yes.
Like you're talking like people that are 6'3", or I shouldn't even say 6'3", like Luka. The point guards nowadays, like Melo, Luka, like you're talking about Ben Simmons, LeBron, even when he's playing point guard. You're talking these players that are 6'5" and over. Honestly, they're probably more like 6'6", 6'7", and taller.
And
playing
I know he's
point
a
guard.
center, but all the hype about Chet Holmgren.
Yeah, Chet Holmgren. You have the Banchero, that guy from Duke. It's like 6'10", 6'11", something like that. That's just, you see these players that are just so athletic now. And again, stretch fives that are shooting these threes. And yeah, okay, Jokic is the MVP or whatever, but I mean you're talking like the NBA is getting so much bigger. Challenge it. Give them more space, because with that size comes more length to like steal, strip balls or whatever. Give them more space to shoot and stuff.
Right.
That's my hot tamale, as you say.
I like the tamale. It was very flavorful.
I thought so.
It was. So then, for our next section, moving on from the Tamales, as much as I like them, I really want to get to this next conversation topic, which I know is something very near and dear to your heart, or maybe to breaking your heart,
Yes.
which is our Was It Worth It section.
Ooh.
Featuring today Davante Adams and the Green Bay Packers.
So, was it worth it? Obviously, there's two sides of it, right? You
Yep.
have the Raiders side and you have the Packers side. So I think we have to discuss both sides of it in order to get the full picture of the whole situation. So look up, as I'm saying this, look up the whole trade. I don't want to get anything wrong. So to start off, he is arguably top 3 wide receivers. We discussed this with the Madden discussion, but he is a top 3 wide receiver in the league. There's no doubt about it. Everything points to it. He is 30. That is
30.
something to keep in mind. Granted, yeah, he still has his prime. He's in his prime of his career, as they say. He's been in his prime for the past couple years, and he is not being paid like that. And the Packers very much underpaid him. He was probably the 10th highest paid or around that wide receiver before this extension that he just had.
Right.
And that's ridiculous. And so I understand the want for money. That makes sense. However, when the Packers offer that amount of money and get rejected, and him still say I want to trade, that's where his issue is. And I think it also comes to the fact that he needed that reassurance from the Packers earlier on. They waited too long to re-sign him to a new deal.
Yes.
They should have signed him 2 years ago when he really was in the height of his career.
Mm-hmm.
Sign him to another extension.
Mm-hmm.
And say, okay, we're going to add 2 years, 3 years onto this deal that we're about to give you and give you a lot more money.
Right.
However, they waited a little too long. He was in his last year of his contract.
Mm-hmm.
And so he was looking at it as like, okay, we've been talking, and they had been talking in the past years, but nowhere near the same. What one person was asking, Davante Adams was asking for a lot. Packers weren't really offering a lot. And that's also a Packers way. The Packers way of, well, if you don't want to pay for us, go play for someone else. Yeah. And that's the issue, right? Yes. So the Raiders come along, and obviously they have the little bit of leverage saying, okay, we're gonna get someone. We're gonna get someone that doesn't even want to play for them anymore. We don't have to offer the Packers all that much. Plus, if you're the Raiders, you say, oh, but he's also in his last year of his contract, so we have to give him a new contract. Mm-hmm. In addition to giving up a draft pick or giving up some capital of some sort. So in their eyes, they're like, okay, let's see, let's kind of think about it. I'm pretty sure it was a second round pick, was it?
It was a first and second round.
First and second round pick.
I believe so.
Yes, it was. First and second round pick
Number
of this past year.
and 53.
Yes. And as a Packer fan, it hurts.
Yes.
Because you have to look at the situation and think, okay, Packers have been NFC Championships, other than, of course, this past year was terrible. I get that. But really has been contenders for at least 4 years in a row.
Yes.
And you look at the situation and think, again, in the long run, might be the better move to move on from Davante Adams. He's 30. You get a first and a second round pick for him. Understood. However, Aaron Rodgers isn't going to be around in that foreseeable future.
And not only that, part of the reason you didn't want to spend all that money on Davante Adams is because you just signed a 5-year contract. With Aaron Rodgers.
Mm-hmm. And that was the whole situation. So then you look at the situation and you think, okay, we are in win it now mode.
Right.
Let's sign him. However, the issue with this is he was not going to play for the Packers. That is the whole issue with this is
once they franchise tagged
him, it was over. The relationship had been done. The relationship was broken.
From his point of view, that is understandable.
100%. You don't want to get franchise tag as the number 3 wide receiver because it's the average of the top 10 at that position is the franchise tag.
Yes.
So you take all the salaries of the top 10, or yearly salary, I should say, of the top 10 players in that position, cut it in half, and that's how much the franchise tag player gets. And he does not want that because he is not the fifth, arguably, or whatever, the fifth rated wide receiver. He is a
top three.
Top
you could
three
say
wide
number
receiver.
one, number two.
Yeah.
You could make the argument.
Yeah.
Him and Cooper.
So, he wanted, there were reports years ago that he wanted to play for Derek Carr.
Mm-hmm.
Same college. Huge. They even went to the same college, but they also played together in college at Fresno State. There's no real other Fresno State graduates in the NFL.
Right.
And so, again, he wanted to play, and it's also in L.A.
Mm-hmm.
Or is it, sorry. Las Vegas.
Sorry.
It is in Las Vegas now. But it's Las Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
Not in Green Bay, Wisconsin. They have a whole new stadium. You have a whole, you're no longer really affected by weather. Right. All of that kind of stuff really built into it. I don't know about property tax or whatever with that. I know Green Bay does. I don't know about Las Vegas. I don't think they do have property tax. And that's another thing. Or just taxes in general
no
for
state
that.
Income
no
tax.
state income tax. That's what it is, yeah. So, all these things combined.
Right.
And just a burned relationship with the Packers. He's always wanted to play with, obviously, Carr. So you look at the situation and think, okay, as the Raiders, you like it, obviously.
Right.
But the issue with this is you're getting a 30-year-old wide receiver, giving up a first and second round pick, and paying him a lot of money.
The largest contract ever.
Yeah, for a wide receiver or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
I don't know if it's that way on the year-by-year breakdown because it's 5 years,
But still. So as a Raider, it's very interesting because if you're talking about Terry McLaurin getting this deal, 100%. Terry McLaurin is very different. Probably 5-6 years younger? Maybe 4-5 years younger? Yeah. And you're talking about a future. If he gets injured, okay, you have more years. Mm-hmm. But you're talking about, again, a 30-year-old wide receiver that obviously is a great wide receiver, but he has been injured in the past. I don't think has a full season for the past 4 or 5 years. So you're really talking about a very risky, but also high upside maybe. But
in their mind, it's more of a question of, irregardless of the money it costs now, if you add him to this team, do they think they're going to win a Super Bowl?
And I think
I will have to see the team play together.
But also look at the division.
They could. Yeah, yes.
The division is the Chargers. What is it? Chargers, Chiefs, Broncos? Is it? Pretty sure it is. Mm-hmm. So you're talking about 4 teams, obviously, all of them, have really stacked up.
Yes.
And again, there are playoffs and everything, but the AFC is a lot stronger than the NFC.
Yes.
A lot stronger. So you're also talking about, I should say, NFC is very top heavy with the Rams and stuff. Mm-hmm. But the AFC is very just completely, you got the Chiefs, divisions. You got the Bills, you got all these teams that are just stacked everywhere. Mm-hmm. Got even the Cincinnati Bengals, just out of nowhere.
Out of nowhere.
So, was it worth it? It's hard to tell now, but I'd say for the Packers, if I'm putting a stamp on it, if I were to stamp it, I would say Raiders. I'd say yes, but I would be very hesitant. It's a very hesitant yes because of all the issues because he gets hurt ankles because his ankles are really turf toe, whatever that may be, because of his quick cuts. Really, again, maybe it's different in the warmer weather.
Could be,
but injuries is a huge thing because if you lose someone like that, when he's on the field, he's almost unstoppable. He gets open all the time, but that's only when he's on the field.
Right.
And first or second round pick again isn't the biggest deal. Isn't the biggest deal for them because really, you get depth and maybe a starter, but you really have to hit on someone. And really,
who's going to replace in that receiver core
exactly
Devontae Adams?
Exactly.
Especially,
Yeah, granted, it was a good receiving core this year, but what they're hoping is, okay, Derek Carr and him have a good relationship. They want to play together. They're going to build the relationship. He's obviously a great wide receiver. Derek Carr's a good quarterback. They're going to build something together and go from there. And I think you have to say, yeah, it's a good trade for them.
yeah.
I think you have to. And I think for the Packers, you have to say no.
I think you have to say no.
You have to say it's a bad trade.
I think you have to say mishandled.
Especially.
It's not even so much that it seems like a loss to go into the next season without Devontae Adams.
100%.
Because he is irreplaceable in a lot of ways. But I think what makes it even more painful is the way they handled it, and they handled it so publicly, where he then requested a trade. If they had handled it differently, they might have had more leverage to say, well, we will trade, but we want Hunter Renfrow and some picks.
Yeah, but the thing is, okay.
We want another receiver who could be our number one and some picks.
So that's the other thing, right? So you have something like, I mean, you have a player that again could be really beneficial for him to leave. Again, very skeptical.
Very skeptical.
Because you have players that come out. You have the very rare Justin Jefferson. Because if Christian Watson, we drafted a couple wide receivers, especially Christian Watson is going to be the main person, obviously, because he was the highest draft pick. But you have him coming in. If he pans out, then great.
But he has a very short time frame
exactly.
to pan out.
But the issue is really you're looking at Lazard, which never was a real number one.
No.
And as much as he tried with Adams out, he was never going to be the number one for the Packers.
No.
And you got Randall Cobb coming back again, just someone that Aaron Rodgers trusts, which I think is important this year. Having a Randall Cobb, having Lazard on the team, especially with how many wide receivers we did lose, having Tunyon back at tight end is also big. We have running backs that can catch, big. But I think it also might, again, this is a low probability, but could happen. I think a lot of the times last year, Aaron Rodgers zoned in to Devontae Adams, and it cost them, especially in the game we lost in the playoffs. Like we zoned in because that was against the 49ers. We zoned into Adams. He trusts Adams. He does, he kept throwing it to him, and just they would double cover. They would triple cover him. And Aaron Rodgers, for some reason, even though he saw that, he wouldn't pass it on to other place.
Right.
So you're talking about, again, a very small probability, but we needed another wide receiver.
Yes.
And it would have been great to have Adams and Christian Watson and Cobb and Lazard and just have it all as a team.
Right.
Because really what I've seen to make the run.
Yes.
Because it would be great to have someone else opposite of Devontae Adams that Aaron Rodgers trusts.
And they need that. They've needed that for years. And the solution has just been now to get rid of Devontae Adams.
And think about this. Think about years ago. I mean, you might not remember, but the receiving core for the Packers when Aaron Rodgers was really slinging it. Granted, he has had back-to-back MVP seasons. Yes. But when he was really doing well, really playing well, is when he had two or three at least great wide receivers that they would pass it all the time. Granted, they never had a good running back, but he just was slinging it left and right. And finally, we get a good running back, no wide receivers. And it's always something with the Packers. And so, again, to summarize, I think Raiders, I think it was a good trade, obviously, especially given. I think that's a little more. I'm a little uneasy about that decision. I think Packers lost that trade 100%.
I agree.
Again, Devontae Adams put them in a position where it was like, okay, you're kind of needing to go. Like he wanted to go, so they really only could get a first and second round pick. Granted, they don't have to pay him as much or anything at this point, but they don't have to pay him. So in the end, yeah. But they still lost the trade. I think. Was it worth it for the Packers? No. For the Raiders, yeah.
And we agree.
We agree on that one.
All right, now shifting gears, real quick to the weekend review. A couple of interesting stories to go over related to, of course, all of this stuff is with the off season. Kyler Murray laid a bit of a foul ball at the beginning of the off season this year, deleting all photos related to the Cardinals on his Instagram. But always a man above the fray, he chose to float high above the petty world of social media debates, preferring the more professional route of, as we've said, deleting all of his photos related to the Cardinals from Instagram. Fortunately, we have learned that the ensuing uproar was all the result of an unfortunate misunderstanding. As the ink was drying on his new $230,500,000 contract, Kyler Murray reminded his teammates just how committed he was to the organization. Per ESPN, Murray declared Friday, "There's no other place that I wanted to be this whole time, and I mean that." End quote. Steve Keem, the general manager, further emphasized the selfless team mentality Kyler brought to the table, saying that the deal has, quote, "some team-friendly things in there that were important to Kyler." He did not elaborate, but perhaps he is referring to the $160 million in guaranteed money that he is receiving, giving him the distinction of second most guaranteed money of any quarterback in the league. In fact, the only quarterback with more guaranteed money is Deshaun Watson. And if you're wondering why this makes sense, remember he signed with the Cleveland Browns. Speaking of disappointing franchises and bad deals, Karl Anthony Towns has broken his silence on the blockbuster trade of his young team's future for an all-star who plays the same position as himself. He confesses to momentary confusion at first, but no doubt after a talk with his GM, realized that he was not confused, but actually excited. We can understand his excitement. It is not often that players get a chance to be a part of history, and with the Rudy Gobert trade, the Timberwolves might have a shot at the worst trade in modern NBA history.
Good.
Now I don't know, maybe that's me just not being a believer, but the West is pretty stacked already.
Yeah.
And
you think?
And I just don't see how. Okay, maybe the Jazz drop out of the ranks, and you say they're not going to be as good.
Yeah.
But I think we have not really seen the Clippers at full strength.
Yeah.
They're going to be back. The Suns are going to be back. The Warriors have a good shot at being another dynasty, like pulling a Bulls, essentially, and being another dynasty. We have the Lakers, who did not make playoffs. I think it's hard to say that spot will be open again. I really think LeBron...
They have the play-in game. The play-in game, I think, is a big thing. I think that, I mean, you have, 12 teams that make the play-in game or whatever, or 12 teams that make the playoffs. I guess not technically make the playoffs, but are eligible to make it on either side.
Yes.
So you're talking about 24 teams out of the 30 teams in the NBA have a legit shot at the end of the season. You really only have 3 teams on each side that are really bottom of the barrel.
Right.
So you have to say that the Timberwolves are going to be one of those 12 teams.
They are going to be, yes, they're going to be one of those 12 teams, but with the teams they're jockeying against, I think it's going to be really hard for them because, okay, Damian Lillard is probably not going to be injured all season next year with the entire Trailblazers team also injured all year.
Yeah.
The Trailblazers will probably be in the mix again. The Lakers will either figure it out or a trade will happen.
See, that's the thing. I think the trade.
They will be in the mix.
What will be very interesting. I don't think LeBron will leave the Lakers.
No.
I don't think he wants to be traded or anything from the Lakers.
No.
I think he wants Kyrie in,
yeah,
or Kevin Durant to come in, just to build because
Yeah, of course he does.
I think we've discussed this before, but the Lakers have no shooting.
No.
Absolutely none.
None.
And as much as it is a hindrance to them, I think they have the pieces they can trade away, and they can get younger,
Yes.
which is the biggest thing. Because a lot of players, like we discussed before, a lot of players coming out of the draft are 3-and-D. That's a big movement in the NBA. So it's like you can trade. I mean, maybe not trade, but like just like they have to trade because they do not have a winning roster.
No. And I think they're just looking for some kind of trade for Russell Westbrook, or they might have to trade Anthony Davis, or both.
Because 5 years ago, this team would be amazing.
Yeah.
5 years ago, maybe even like 10 years ago, this team would be. I don't know. I think Anthony Davis isn't in 10 years yet.
No.
But like 5 or 6 years ago, this team would have been unbelievable.
Yep.
Grant still can't shoot, but
just more young,
just
less
younger.
injury riddled.
Yeah.
Yep, more athletic.
Because you're really talking like
the injuries are what really hurts.
injuries.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I mean you're, jeez, I can't even think. Like Brandon Ingram would have been great to keep. Obviously, Kyle Kuzma's gone. Obviously, Alex Caruso's gone. Like you have all these players that they, lost, and they've only, like, they have no one.
And that's just to say though that despite their struggles, I still think that you can never discount LeBron James. If Anthony Davis is healthy for even half the season, as opposed to whatever he was, I think that they could have a team that could knock someone out of a play-in or out of a playoffs. The only team that made playoffs last year that I think is going to get worse and not make it would be perhaps the San Antonio Spurs.
Yeah.
Or the Utah Jazz. Tough to know now. I don't see how Rudy Gobert makes the Timberwolves a contender against teams like the Suns, the Grizzlies, the Warriors, the Mavericks, the Nuggets, the Clippers, in any conceivable way. And now
you just listed 6 easily.
Yes.
Like that's 6 teams that could
we'll
easily
stomp them.
Yeah.
In a series.
I think maybe there might be a mismatch matchup wise. I think again, I don't know per se, but I don't know how good the Grizzlies are.
The Grizzlies are good.
They're good. They're good. Don't get me wrong. They're good, but are they? There's also you have to think about matchups wise too, right? Mm-hmm. So with 2 big men, you're in a good position. You have to play through them, obviously.
Or you just shoot over.
Or you just shoot over
from 3.
Yeah. So it's that's tough.
Karl Anthony Towns, he's not a defensive player, really. But what, are they going to play them at the same time? You know?
They have to.
They have to.
They have to.
But I don't know.
I mean, you think about. For me, I think the best team obviously is a team like the Clippers. Honestly, the Clippers they have 2 players, 2 shutdown defenders in Kawhi Leonard and Paul George. Mm-hmm. And that's something like if you can have that, and they're both awesome, honestly great on offense too.
Right.
You get some shooting and some size around them. I mean, come on, that team's almost unstoppable.
It'll be interesting to see how it all plays out.
Exactly.
So moving on to our final segment, we have the stat hat.
The stat hat. Let's pull
Evan,
it out.
You introduce the stat hat.
So the stat hat is a little segment we were going to do, and I'm going to reach in here. We got a couple stats in here, just some obscure stats, maybe not obscure, but maybe also something that
probably obscure.
When think of it and be like, huh, it's something that we can discuss, something that we can talk about, and hopefully get some interaction with the comment section later as well. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so
favorite stat in the comment section.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good idea. Or if you want, you can post your own stat, and maybe I'll put it in the video at some point.
That's
and
true.
Maybe I'll go down and get
the more
some
ridiculous, the better.
The more ridiculous, the better. Make sure it's correct though. We don't want something crazy.
Yeah, no fake news.
All right. So there's a stat, or not a stat. This is more of a fact. This is a fact, and there's some stats. There's some facts.
Fact hat.
Fact stat. Back in the early part of the NFL, when the first forward pass came about, an incomplete forward pass would be a 15-yard penalty to that team.
Wow.
So it was a pass that was dropped without being touched first, so without a defender being touched, or defender touching them, would mean the possession belonged, or the defense or the offense would have a 15-yard penalty.
That really de-incentivized the forward pass right at its introduction. That's a kind of a stumble out of the gate.
That is a
for
stumble.
A new move.
But you think also though, if you're one way and you like the football, you want to make small strides. If you're like, oh man, they can throw the ball forward, let's not make it easy.
Yeah.
Because really, if you think about it, it is easier than running the ball.
And I'm sure they had no concept of safeties and cornerbacks.
No.
Really.
No. They were, they had position. They just had kind of roamers, probably.
Yeah.
All right. That's a good one. I like that one. Ooh, I like this one as well. Okay, so during World War II, many players from the Steelers and Eagles were lost. So died during service.
Okay.
The two teams combined that next year to have players from both teams, right? And they formed the Steagles in the 1943 season. So you had the Steagles as a franchise for a little bit.
That is wild.
That is wild. And there were two actual NFL teams that combined because they had nobody. They didn't have enough players to play, so they combined. You think about it. Same.
I don't know what's crazier, that they combined or that the NFL was still operating in some capacity during World War II.
They had to keep people entertained, I guess. I don't know. Yeah. I don't know, but then that's insane to me.
Wild.
I guess they combined the states or whatever. But yeah, I thought it was.
That is wild.
All right, let's.
Yeah, no peeking.
No peeking. I don't want to peek. All right. What do you think is the oldest sporting event in the U.S.?
Croquet.
Specific event.
The Kentucky Derby.
It is the Kentucky Derby. The oldest sporting event is the Kentucky Derby. Could you guess a year?
Let's say 1810.
1875. A little later than you'd think,
okay.
I guess.
Okay.
But 18 correct. That's impressive, honestly. I'm actually very impressed with that.
The Kentucky Derby?
And it's been annually since 1875.
It's got that old-timey feel.
It's the big hats.
It's
what keeps it going, It's the big hats.
That's why we all watch it.
Yeah, let's get a couple more. Two more. Let's do two more. Make it even 5. All right. Okay. So let's switch it up. Let's do tennis.
Yeah.
Longest recorded tennis match was 2010 Wimbledon.
Okay.
How long was that tennis match?
20 minutes.
11 hours.
Whoa.
It took place...
I don't watch a lot of tennis.
Apparently. It took place over 3 days.
I didn't know that you could do that.
You didn't either. I didn't either. I thought it had to be done at once. And it was Wimbledon. It was an John Isner won over Nicholas Mahut. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that second one. I know John Isner. But 11 hours of playing tennis. Talk about tiring. That is exhausting.
And imagine for the players.
Yeah, that's true too. All right, let's do the last one. Do you want honors?
I will.
Oh, you got it? Well, he's gonna read it. If he can read it, my handwriting's not the best. He can't read it. The biggest participation sport on the planet, I don't know if you read it, is fishing.
I guess it makes sense.
It makes sense because everybody does it, I guess. I mean, I fish. But
by at least definition, I think there's a lot of career fishers.
A lot of career, yeah.
I don't think of it as quite the sport, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. But the biggest, First thing that comes to my head is soccer or football around the
Football.
world. But I guess then again, I mean, fishing is a sport, so you have to. I mean, everybody does it on
Everyone
there.
does.
It's a leisure thing or whatever. It's
Sit out
entertaining.
there and- yeah.
relaxing.
Interesting.
It is. Well, that's stat hat for you. A little more facts hat today, but well, it's all luck of the poll.
We'll just
Put this
keep
in there.
the stats in there for the next.
Stats in there for the next one. I like it.
All right. Well, I guess that brings us to the end, folks. It's that time of day again, Evan. We have to get going, and we know you all do too. It was a beautiful day to get back to. Keep shining.
See you guys. Thanks.